The English rock scene of the 1970s produced many under-the-radar supergroups, and what I mean by that is bands formed by musicians who had established reputations elsewhere on a cult scale. And that also included some members who were yet to make their own reputation elsewhere. One such collective was Dog Soldier, which put out an eponymous album in 1975 and promptly disappeared. But they were interesting membership-wise in that they included two key members of the Keef Hartley band, which had been very prolific during the earlier part of the decade, and they also included Paul Bliss, who would emerge later in the decade as the namesake frontman of the LA-based Bliss band. Well, anyway, from that one Dog Soldier album, the track Long and Lonely Night. Leslie guitar effects, I believe, and some organ to mix with that.
Gonna be a long, lonely night, but that ain't nothing new to me.
He has a very distinct voice, Paul Bliss. It's a bit more pronounced here than it is on the. I think he had his tone a bit more under control, perhaps on the Bliss band albums. It's a bit more refined there.
Gave up thinking it would turn out right. The day you turned away from me. Don't follow me. Turn your back on me, please. Don't follow me. I've got all I need. Don't call me. I won't hear a word you say, 'cause I'm a million miles away.
I love that fold-out, lavish chorus right there with all the emotion that he puts into it. I wish the lyrics were printed somewhere.
Living from day to day and year to year has emptied part of me away. You never hear the words you want to hear. I've got nothing left to say. Don't follow me. Let me be on my own. Don't follow me. Go back where you belong. Don't call me. I won't hear a word you say, 'cause I'm a million miles away.
That sustained chord when he hits I won't hear a word you say, it has that lift right there, that nah, like it basically it lands on a suspended third. Yeah, it's one of those where it's one of those progressions where they go up a step or something, but instead of just going up a step, they add in a like suspended third to give it all the more lift, all the more like elevation, and then they release it, of course, and it gives that it creates that kind of lift release type feel. that's the guitar work of Miller Anderson, yeah, the Scottish vocalist, guitarist, songwriter who was the primary creative force behind the Keef Hartley band. That wrote some of the best material for the band anyway. And the very kind of understated, just well-paced, like, drumming that you're hearing, that ballad drumming, let's say, that gives those, you know, those kind of slow boom type rolls that of any great power ballad, you know, that right on like the pre-chorus. That's by Keef Hartley, Liverpool drumming legend who, oh well, more on his history a bit later. Now let's just get back.
Leave me here to make it on my own. It's so much easier that way.
Hear that little sound right there, that kind of high-pitched sound? What's that, like a arp?
If I can work it out here all alone, maybe my life will turn today.
Some of the vocals on the chorus, the way the vowels are being stretched and everything, reminds me just a tad bit of General Johnson. Hearing some coming out of that speaker. It's circling. I'm wondering what that is. Breathtaking ballad, Long and Lonely Night by Dog Soldier from their singular album, the 1975 self-titled release. Dog Soldier with Mel Simpson on keyboards, Miller Anderson on guitar and vocals, Keef Hartley on drums, Paul Bliss on bass and lead vocals, and Derek Griffiths on guitar and vocals. That's the credits given. Thank you, RYM, for being a bit more resourceful on this one than Discogs appears to be. They're not giving me... Oh, I finally found an entry. It's funny how in Discogs there'll be like all this whole stack of entries that all appear exactly the same. And it's like you click the fourth one down and finally you get a bit of credit detail. Let's see here. Well, back to Keef Hartley. Yeah, he fronted the namesake Keef Hartley band between 1969 and 1972, 73, thereabouts. They released like, I think 5 studio albums and a live album. The best being their second from 1969. And this was news to me about 12 years ago when I got into the band. played Woodstock, although apparently, from what I recall, their set was not included in either the movie or any of the. I've never investigated the soundtracks, so one of the bands that I guess ended up on the cutting room floor, but that was like, so they did have for being primarily like a UK phenomenon. They did get some like high level exposure here in the United States. And Miller Anderson, who was writing their material, definitely outdid himself like on the second and third album. And then after that, they kind of became a bit more of a jam rock band. They had been like a real lavish, very composition oriented sax rock, brass rock act. Similar to If or The Greatest Show on Earth. Like basically the UK equivalent to the US brass rock scene of like Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears, 10 Wheel Drive, Sons of Champlain, Chase, all those bands. And Keef Hartley, before fronting his own brass rock, namesake brass rock band, he had been in the Artwoods, a mid-60s R&B beat combo with Art Wood on vocals. Art Wood, the older brother of Ron Wood, who at the time, Ron Wood, who 10 years before he joined the Rolling Stones, was just a teenage guitarist. At the time, in a beat combo called The Byrds, spelt as bird, spelt normal spelling, not to be confused with the American jangle folk rock act that spelt their name B with a Y. And the Artwoods also included a pre-Deep Purple John Lord on keyboards. And a bit of trivia, another bit of trivia about Keef Hartley. He replaced Ringo Starr in Rory Storm in the Hurricanes when Richard Starkey departed to replace Pete Best in the Beatles in late 1962. Meanwhile, Miller Anderson, who had been writing material for the Keef Hartley band circa 1969-1970, released a really wonderful solo album in 1971 with this one beautiful ballad that I'm going to have to do on here soon. Was kind of like a journeyman through like the first half of the 70s anyway. He was on a record by a folk rock combo called Hemlock in 1973, and in 1975, in addition to regrouping with Keef Hartley and Paul Bliss, the relative newcomer Paul Bliss, he was in another band. He did an album with this one-off combo called Broken Glass, more kind of hard rock, soul rock release there, and continued to do the journeyman thing. I guess was part of the Dukes. I haven't explored that one. The Dukes was an R&B band with Charlie Tumahali after Bebop Deluxe folded. And Paul Bliss, of course, for Keef Hartley didn't really do anything this major again. He kind of resigned like behind to like sideman, I guess, status after this. But Paul Bliss relocated to LA with his namesake band, the Bliss Band, and they put out 2 albums circa 1978-79. Dinner with Raoul and Neon Smiles. A Dinner with Raoul, I swear, is the greatest pastiche of Steely Dan ever released. Not that that's a wide open field, but I mean, this band really studied their Dan and like there's so many, but the songwriting's so great on its own. They don't steal any motifs, any melodies from Dan. They just take all these nuances of different Dan, characteristics of certain, and integrate them. It's like you've got songs on there that are like kind of like the beginning of Everyone's Gone to the Movies with the marimbas, combined with like the Latinized elements of Ricky Don't Lose That Number, and yeah, it's all you could spend all day, like if you're like a huge like Steely Dan buff, like taking apart different elements and saying spot that influence, or spot what Steely Dan, what album track, what bridge or instrumental break on like Katy Lied is being invoked right here. Yeah, Keef Hartley has 112 credits on according to Discogs. What else did he do? What did he do after this? Some involvement with Vinegar Joe. Yeah, who I was talking about in my Robert Palmer video a few days ago. Michael Chapman, the singer-songwriter, John Mayall. And let's see, this other... Yeah, Mel Simpson I'm not all that familiar with off the top of my head. Outside, it doesn't have a lot of credits listed on here. Anyway, yeah, Dog Soldier, great one-off album. There's that beautiful ballad. There's some other really good songs on there too. Like the track Several People. That's a real breezy, brisk breathtaker. So for more to see all the rubies and sapphires from the Dog Soldier album, see the directory of albums by English D artists, linked in the description below, for Dog Soldier, as well as many other DRs from England like Deaf School, The Damned, The Doctors of Madness, Def Leppard, Depeche Mode, Duran Duran, and yeah, the list goes on. Dusty Springfield, the list goes on and on and on. Dire Straits, and follow me on social media to know when the next video is coming out. Like and subscribe and comment on anything that points that you liked or points that you think need to be added to what we just heard. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear-traveled trimaximalist, signing off.